Welcome back, MG fam, to our Georgia Southern rebuild here on College Football 25. And after losing to App State in our final game, we will not be going bowling. That game was a heartbreaker, but we fought hard all the way to the end. And we finished the season on a 3-game losing streak, which is not good. But we can redeem ourselves this offseason by signing some additional players. Speaking of signing players, we were able to get some of those guys to commit that were in attendance for the App State game. First up, we got tight end Deshaun Talbot. He's a 2-star kid from Florida. We also locked up Ben Kaiser, the free safety, and you know where he's from, Florida, 2-star guy. So we stacked up at the safety position. These guys probably won't see any immediate playing time, but we're going to train them up and get them ready for year 3 or 4. And Tevin Tolson, another safety, we got him to sign from Grovetown, Georgia. And he's a 2-star kid as well. And as we wrap up the regular season, you can see we fell down to 5th place in the East. And we finished the season in front of Georgia State and James Madison, 2 teams we defeated. Everybody else that's in front of us, we lost to. And at the end of the season, our guy, Jalen White, climbed into the top 3 for the Best Running Back of the Year award. And Devin Roche, who was in front of us, fell down to 6. So Jalen White is in front of Phil Maffa from Clemson and Donovan Edwards from Michigan. So he's in good company. The only thing I fear is that the rest of the nation has taken notice and they're going to try to steal him from us. And to take a look at our season stats, our starting quarterback Dexter Williams finished with over 2,500 yards passing this season, 17 touchdowns and 17 interceptions. He averaged 214 yards passing per game, which was more of a surprise to me because we knew coming in he wasn't the best passer. And moving on to our running backs, Jalen White finished with 1,442 yards on the ground, which led the nation. He had 11 touchdowns. That didn't lead the nation, but it led our team. And he averaged 120 yards per game. And he only fumbled twice out of 216 carries. That's a real workhorse there. And our next leading rusher was Dexter Williams. He had 274 yards on 80 carries, 6 TDs, but 10 fumbles. And after him, we got my boy Arnold, who had 19 carries, 110 yards, and 1 touchdown. And for our receivers, Bunkley led everyone in yardage. He finished with 610, and he had 3 TDs. Burgess followed him with 505 yards on only 18 receptions, and he added 6 touchdowns. He led all of our receivers when it came to touchdowns. And the leading reception guy was our guy Fromm. He had 49 receptions, and he gave us 487 yards. And our running back, Jalen White, added 335 yards and 3 TDs. So altogether, he had 1,800 all-purpose yards. And when it comes to defense, our guy Isaac Walker led the team with 6 sacks, followed by Deshaun Davis, who gave us 5, and then Rose, he had 3.5, and Hicks had 1. And when it came to interceptions, we had 4 guys tied with 2 interceptions apiece. Watson Trent had 2, Morris had 2, Stampley had 2, Hill had 2, and Smith finished with 1. And we did break a couple records this year, and Dexter Williams broke both of them. He is now the record holder for the most passing yards in the season with 2,579, and he's also the record holder for the most passing touchdowns in the season, which is 17. Now moving on to the season stat leaders in the conference. For the quarterbacks, the most passing yards goes to Grant Wilson of Old Dominion. The guy is a redshirt junior, and he's most likely will be returning to Old Dominion, and he threw for a lot of yards. And the guy that finished with the most passing touchdowns was Chandler Fields from the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. He had 35 touchdown passes and only 13 interceptions. And our guy Dexter Williams didn't have the most interceptions, even though it felt like it. Cole Pennington led the conference in interceptions with 18, but he also had more touchdowns than our guy Dexter. And when it came to running the ball, you know the leader was Jalen White with that 1,400 yards on the ground. And the runner-up to Jalen White was Elijah Davis from Louisiana Lafayette. He finished with 778 yards and 8 TDs. When it comes to receiving yards, the leader was Omarion Dollison. He had 1,108 yards, 10 TDs, so he averaged 92 yards per game. And following him is Zariah Beeson from Troy University. He had 1,026 yards, but he led the conference when it came to receiving touchdown as he finished with 16. And on the defensive side, the leading sack getter was Will Whitson from Coastal Carolina. He finished with 12.5 sacks. And behind him is Eric Thomas Jr. He had 11 sacks. And the leader for interceptions was Chauncey Logan from James Madison. He finished with 5 interceptions. And following him, you had 5 guys splitting the tie of 4 interceptions. So Logan separated himself from the pack by getting 5. And after finishing the season on a 3-game losing streak, we ended up firing both of our coordinators. So goodbye Raphael Bowers and Cullen Dean. And you can see their prestige took a hit before we fired them. And we're going to have a lot of guys ready to hit the transfer portal. And at the beginning of the season, Bowers started with a C- prestige and Dean had a B. And that was one of the reasons why our coach prestige was so high with the combination of all of us 3. But after that poor showing late in the season, those 2 guys fell to D, and we're getting rid of both of them because we're going to bring on some new talent. And we adopted these coordinators when we started this dynasty, so they really wasn't handpicked by me. So now we're going to have a chance at forming our own coaching staff. And the Heisman Award for this year goes to Grayson McCall, North Carolina State, after he had a great season. 3,300 yards, 43 touchdowns, and only 4 interceptions. And a quick look at the college football playoffs as the table has been set. In the first round, you got Alabama going up against South Carolina. And then you got USC facing Texas State from our conference. And waiting for these guys is Ohio State, who finished 12-1, and Georgia, who finished 11-2. And on the other side, we got Oregon facing Florida State in the first round. And then you got Florida facing Miami. So the state of Florida is well represented in the college football playoffs this year. And waiting on those guys, you have Utah and North Carolina State, who has the Heisman Trophy winner in Grayson McCall. And now let's move on to the first team All-Americans. And we had our guy Jalen White selected. So Coach McGruff had his first All-American player selected. And there's not a better guy to do that than Jalen White. Now moving on to the Sun Belt All-Conference team. On the first team, we had 2 guys selected. Jalen White, as you guys know, because he's a national All-American. And Marquez Watson Trent, our middle linebacker, got selected. And we didn't have anyone selected on the second team. Moving on to the all-freshman team, we had a few guys selected there. Our guys Elijah Walton and Robert Wright Jr. And now moving on to the coach carousel, we've been offered a head coaching job at San Diego State. Even after a 4-8 season, I guess they see something. They have us as the top candidate. And I think the main reason is because we're the motivated archetype, but we don't run those schemes. And also, we're not leaving Georgia Southern. But now let's move on to early National Signing Day. And you can see we landed another commit, Mr. Damian Baker, another cornerback. We're trying to get better in the secondary because you guys seen us get torched all year long. And we fell down 5 spots since the last time we checked the recruiting rankings. So now we're number 70 and we have 20 total commitments. 3 3-stars and 17 2-stars. And now I would like to introduce you guys to our new coaching staff. Meet Mr. Kevin Fine, a level 17 motivator. His offensive scheme is pistol, but we will not be running that. And his pipeline is North Carolina. So pairing that North Carolina pipeline with the South Carolina pipeline, we should be able to find some great defensive players in those hotbeds. And James Flood, who comes in as a level 17 motivator. He runs the 3-4 scheme, which matches ours, and his pipeline is in Wisconsin. And that will probably help us beef up our offensive line. This is Coach McGruff's first official coaching staff. And as we progress throughout this dynasty, you guys will see the Coach McGruff tree grows, because I believe these guys will be head coaches one day. And the reason I signed these 2 guys is because we all believe in the same thing. We want to be motivated. And after simulating the college football playoffs, you got the number 1 seed Ohio State Buckeyes facing the 4th seed North Carolina State Wolfpack. So Grayson McCall Heisman season will end in Atlanta, Georgia for the national title. And that will be a great way to cap off a senior season. And you can already guarantee that he will be a top pick in the NFL draft. Well, he's already a top pick in the NFL draft, even if he loses this game. So let's go ahead and simulate it. And the final score for that championship game was 28-24, with the victory going to the North Carolina State Wolfpack. Grayson McCall finishes his senior season with a Heisman Trophy and a national title. So now we're going to move on to players leaving. As we know, this is going to hurt a little bit. And first up, we got Jalen White ready to roll out on us, man. And his deal breaker was Coach Prestige, as well as everybody else on the list. And we don't have a chance at persuading them. Now, I know this list is extensive, but the few that hurt me the most is Jalen White, Morris, Walker, our best defensive end, and Cobb, our deep threat. He's rolling out as well. And Tracy Hill Jr., one of our best corners. And we can't forget about our best receiver, Burgess, leaving us. But he's leaving due to graduation. That's going to hurt, losing all of these players. But even though it shows that Coach Prestige is the reason, I think a lot of these guys was ready to roll anyway, especially Jalen White, after the monumental season he had. But we'll try to track and see where these guys end up. So now we're going to jump into the transfer portal and off-season recruiting, because it's time to replace those transfers and those graduating seniors. And we're going to discuss a few players that's on our board. And first, we got Javius Boyd, a transfer sophomore. We're number 2 on his list. He's from ECU, and he's interested in our playing style because he's seen all of those touches that we gave Jalen White last year, and he wants some of those, even though he won't start if he comes to our school, because we still got Arnold. But Arnold is not the workhorse that Jalen White was, so he will see a lot of touches next year if he signed with us. And his top school is Army, but he only has one offer on the table, and that offer is from us. Next, we got Jameer Lewis, another transfer. He's a junior. He's a linebacker, and we need as much depth as possible at linebacker, as we lost our guy, Watson Trent, who's our middle linebacker. And Jameer has a lot of scholarships on the table. He was offered by UTSA, UL Monroe, South Alabama, Kennesaw State, and ourselves. And we're number 5 on his list of 5, and he's ready to cut it down to a list of 3. But we'll see where we end up. And he's interested in our playing style as well, which is the 3-4, because we have a lot of linebackers on the field, and linebackers love the 3-4 formation. And we also got Mr. Malachi Carney on our board, and he has us as his top school. We are his only scholarship offer on the table, and he's from Pleasant Grove, Alabama, a right tackle, and his tendency is agility. He's interested in our playing style as well, as he know we like to run the ball, and he wants to showcase his run blocking skills. And we got another offensive lineman on our board coming from the transfer portal, Mr. Kenton Gerardo, a 3-star guy from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. He has 2 scholarship offers on the table, and he will be coming to visit us in week 2. But his top team is Coastal Carolina, so he's getting a lot of love from the Sun Belt. And Coastal Carolina has offered him a scholarship as well. So we got to fight against those guys to land this kid. And last but not least, we got Tremaine Jeffrey, a cornerback from Tallahassee, Florida. He only has 3 schools on his list, and we're his only offer on the table, and he will be visiting us in week 1. The only school that he's shown a lot of interest in is Wake Forest, but they didn't offer him a scholarship, so this should be easy for us. And after fast forwarding the recruiting/transfer portal, we were able to sign Russ Priester, a 3-star free safety. He was one of the guys that we brought over from the regular season that didn't sign with us in season, and he ended up committing in the off season. And we also ended up getting the ECU running back Javius Bond, the 3-star guy, and he will back up Arnold this year, and he will help us fill that big void that Jalen White left. And we also got Malachi Carney, the 3-star right tackle, and we got a left end, Mr. Peter Mumford. He was somebody we were targeting through the regular season. And to take a look at the guys that we didn't land, Kenton Gerardo ended up signing with Coastal Carolina. We knew he was leaning that way, and we will be going up against him next year, and we're gonna want payback. Coastal Carolina, we gotta get back on y'all anyway. And we didn't land Jameer Lewis, who ended up committing to UL Monroe, and he showed interest in our playing style, but I guess the playing style of UL Monroe is what he really wants. And now let's look at where the guys who transferred out of our program ended up. Mr. Mark Stampley III, a 3-star transfer, had his top school as Georgia, but Georgia didn't want him. So now he's without a team. And I guess he would just go off into the abyss. And our guy Jalen White ended up signing with Florida State, and he will probably join a running back committee where he most likely won't have the starting role. And Dalen Cobb ended up signing with Clemson, and you know Clemson is wide receiver U. So we wonder, where will they place him on the depth chart? And Isaac Walker, our best defensive end, heads to the reigning champs, North Carolina State. And if the ACC continues to steal players from us, we're going to have to go over there for a few years and run the table on those guys. And Tracy Hill Jr., our cornerback, ended up going to Auburn, so he is heading to the SEC. And Kevin Speed ended up heading to UAB. So we're going to try to track all of those guys throughout the season to see how did they perform on their new teams. And now let's move on to next season, and you guys can see our schedule. We ended up taking a bye week in week 0, but we will be heading to California to face Fresno State. And then we're going to stay for the week and travel over to USC to face the 3rd ranked USC Trojans. That's going to be the toughest test we had so far, but we're going to try our best to compete with these guys. And if we pull the upset, that will send our program through the roof. And then following that game, we will be facing Jacksonville State for our home opener. And then we're going to take 2 bye weeks to recover, because that 3-game stretch is going to be pretty rough on our squad. And in week 6, we're going to pick back up by facing the defending champs, Texas State, in our conference opener. And then we'll move on to Troy, and after that, Old Dominion and Georgia State. So that gives us 5 home games back to back, and then we will hit the road for 2 away games versus Southern Miss and Marshall. Then we'll come back home to face Coastal, and then we'll hit the road to end the season against James Madison and App State. And now let's move on and look at our key players for this season. Our best player on the squad is LV Bunkley Shelton. He had a very important role on last year's team, and this year his role just got bigger. And we're going to feed him as much as possible, because we know once he gets in open space, it's over. And next up, we got Deshaun Davis, the defensive end. He's an 86 overall this year, and we're going to need him to lead the rest of the guys on the defensive line after the departure of Isaac Walker. So during the offseason, we had a QB battle going on, and that battle was between JC French, our junior quarterback, and Lionel Thomas, our freshman quarterback, who came in as an athlete, but his quarterback abilities was through the roof, and I felt like he could be a great backup, but he changed our mind and showed us that he is a day 1 starter. His speed is a 95, his acceleration is 91, so he gives us that scrambling ability and the agility that we need just in case our offensive line can't keep up with the powerful defenses that we will be facing. He's a scrambler, and he comes with 3 physical abilities: magician, option king, and off platform, and 1 mental ability at quarterback, which Dexter Williams didn't have last year. He is headstrong, which means he is hard to rattle on the road. And also, Lionel has the star development trait, so this freshman here could be the game changer for our program. He's only 6 feet tall, so we're going to have to protect him. We can't allow him to get hurt. And with the running back committee that we have this year, we might be talking about a conference championship, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. And now let's cover some key players that we added to our recruiting board this year. And our focus this year was on defense. First up, we got Xavier Kenyon, the strong safety from Jacksonville, Florida. He's a run support guy, and he has 2 scholarship offers on the table already between us and Kennesaw State. And next, we got Sonny Latu from Sewanee, Georgia. He has us at the top of his list. He's a defensive tackle, and he's a run stopper. And he will be visiting us in week 3 as we go up against Jacksonville State. And he has 3 scholarship offers on the table, 1 from us, Liberty, and Kennesaw State. And we also got a running back on our board, Mr. Muhammad Good. He's 5'9", 191, and he's an elusive back. So you already know the speed is there. And he has 2 scholarship offers already. And you know we gotta beef up that offensive line as always. We got Marshall Chubb here. He's a right guard. He's from Evergreen, Alabama, and we're his only scholarship offer on the table. So we're out in front right now, and I don't think we'll have any competition. And Corey Mosley, another gem that we found, a defensive tackle who's a run stopper. He has 3 scholarship offers on the table between us, Kennesaw State, and Coastal. And we got another gem. This time it's a receiver, Mr. Dave Singleton. We're his only scholarship offer, and we're in first place right now. But look behind us. I think Auburn, Georgia, Florida State, Tennessee, Florida, Clemson all know what we know, is that this kid is a hidden talent. And we also found a bust in Cameron Tyree, but we offered him a scholarship early on that we can't take back. He has us in first place, right in front of Kennesaw, but we're not going to spend much time on this kid because he is obviously not a great player. And last but not least, we got Ty O'Malley, a middle linebacker from Warner Robins, Georgia. He's a run stopper guy, and he's another gem. And he has 2 scholarship offers early on between us and Liberty. And I think that's going to be the battle throughout the season unless somebody else comes from behind. And that wraps up our season 1 off season. And we're ready for season 2, where our goals are to win more than 4 games and to make a bowl game. And a possibility of winning a conference championship would be lovely. And as always, it's your boy McGruff, and I'm out of here. 1.